Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Christopher David Lawson of NEPA, CDL NEPA. Today we're getting ready to swap out wheel bearings on my Hawk DLX. This should be the same for pretty much all the newer Hawks. Let's go ahead and roll the video.
You think you know me?
Alright folks, what you're going to need first of all, to do the front wheel bearings, you're going to need a set of 6301 wheel bearings. These are rubber sealed on both sides. Any 6301 should work. You definitely want to use the rubber seals. They're a little bit better for an application like this. And for the back, you need a 6302. They're a 6302 RS. And RS just means rubber seal, folks. 2 RS, 2 rubber seals. When you first pick up your bearings, you want to do is maybe check to see if there's any play in the brand new bearings. Sometimes you could still end up with some pretty crappy ones if there's a lot of play in there. These are sealed bearings. You can still actually pull the rubber seals out and pack these with more grease if you feel comfortable doing that. But today, basically what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and swap these out. All right, folks, these are some of the tools you're going to need to do the job. Obviously, you're going to need some sort of wrenches or sockets to take the wheels off. You're going to need a rubber mallet or a hammer, preferably rubber mallet. Obviously, your bearings, some rags, some grease if you're going to need it. This is a wheel bearing pulling tool for a motorcycle. I've used this before. Not sure where I got it. Pretty sure I probably bought it off eBay a few years ago. You just want to make sure for this job you have a 12 millimeter and a 15 millimeter to pull the bearings out. And you're also going to need some sort of jack or something, obviously, to lift the bike up off its wheels. Right, folks, I'm going to start off with the front wheel first. I got the bike supported. I don't have it completely jacked up yet, but you're going to need a 14 millimeter wrench for this side, and you're going to need a 17 millimeter wrench this side to take the nut off. And then, of course, you'll need your mallet or something to push the axle out once you've got the bike completely supported with the jack. All right, one thing I'm going to show you right off the bat, folks, you have a spacer on the brake side that you're going to remove, and this is also the only side on the front wheel that has a seal. This side where your speedometer goes does not have a seal, folks. So just an FYI. All right, folks, first thing we did is we took the 12 millimeter, one of these from the bearing pulling tool. We put it in the bearing that we're removing on the other side, and then we insert, this is the smaller of the two things we bang on. Sorry, I don't know the technical term, but that'll go in the slot that's in the end of the specific tool we're using, the bit, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, not technical here. Well, we put it in. I use my regular hammer instead of the mallet, folks. And basically we bang on it until it pulls the bearing out on the other side. And you're also going to see there's a sleeve in between two that the axle rides on. So we're going to make sure before we put the new stuff in, we go through and clean this whole thing out. All right, folks, now that I have room in the axle and I got the seal out, I made sure I lubricated the seal pretty good. That way it wouldn't fall apart since I'm a cheapskate and reusing it. I have a little bit more room, so I'm using the bigger of the two tools right now. Basically, you're just going to pound that into the hole, and hopefully everything stays. If it stays where it's supposed to, you should be able to push that bearing out. As simple as that. Let's get this on camera. I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up. We're going to take the new bearings. I'm going to go ahead and probably clean all that. Put a little lubrication, maybe some anti-seize if you have it, or some grease. So next time you go to do this, it's a little bit easier. Hopefully you never have to do it again, though. And just another FYI, folks, there is another seal on the back side of this bearing. So you're going to want to go ahead and either replace or clean that one up. But I went ahead and cleaned it up. I'm probably going to go ahead and grease all this stuff up on the inside and reinstall the other bearings now. And like I said previously, folks, too, if you got a newer bike and you want to re-grease these rubber seals will pull right out with a little screwdriver, folks. It's pretty simple, actually. If you want to just take the bearings out and pack them again, you can take a little tiny screwdriver or a pick or something just to get in there so you don't damage the seal. See if I can do this on camera in one shot. Those just pop right out like that, folks. And then you can actually get in there with some grease and pack them yourself and redo them. The stock bearings would probably last you a lot longer if you went ahead and did that initially. Like I said, I was lazy and didn't do that. All right, folks, now we're going to reinstall the new bearings. I made sure everything was clean on both sides. I put a little bit of grease in there just so it slides in there a little easier. You're really not lubricating anything other than just to get it in there, because obviously these parts don't move. It's the bearings in the wheel, but the bearings inside the bearing itself. Whatever, you understand what I mean. But basically, I took one of the bigger tools that fits on there, took a hammer, pounded it down in there, made sure it went in there nice and straight. I'm going to go ahead and throw the seal on there, and then I'm going to reassemble the other side the same way. Just make sure you get all your parts back in there, like your little sleeve here that goes on the axle, because that has to go on the other side. All right, folks, now that I had everything cleaned out really good and I put a little lubrication in there, bearing went in really easily. It's all greased up, ready to go. One word of advice before you put this back on the bike, of course. Remember, this side doesn't have the seal. The side that has the speedometer gear, you're going to want to go through and probably get some brake parts cleaner, spray your rotor and everything off if you got any kind of lubrication on it. And of course, you don't want any lubrication on your tires because you're going to have a bad day. All right, front wheel is reassembled correctly. I made sure everything spun. There's no weird noises. I started the bike up to make sure the speedometer's working okay, spun the wheel a little bit just to make sure that's installed right. Everything's nice and snug. I made sure I cleaned up any excess grease, and like I said, make sure you don't get any oils on your tire or your front brake rotor, because it's not going to work for you, obviously. All right, folks, I lowered the bike down. I slid the jack back a little bit. That way it's the back wheel now off the ground a little bit more, and the front wheel still supports it for safety. 19 millimeter wrench on this side, 17 millimeter wrench on this side. Same as the front. Loosen this nut up, take it off, push the axle through. This should go a lot easier because I just did a sprocket and chain upgrade a few months ago on this, so everything should still look pretty good in there. All right, folks, wheels out. You're going to want to put the chain off to the side like that. Be cautious with your brake caliper and pads when pulling it off. There is a little spacer right there, and there is a spacer on this side as well. A lot more to work to take this wheel off, but make sure you support this too. You never want to hang your calipers by the hose. These hoses are probably junk anyway, but we're not doing brakes today. So there was a seal on both sides for the back wheel this time, unlike the front. We're going to go ahead and clean all this up now and disassemble number 5. All right, folks, you're going to want to take note of this part of the video. The brake side seal is the larger seal. The rotor side seal is the smaller seal. Both of mine are in good shape. They're a little dirty, but I'm going to be able to reuse those. We're going to remove the bearings from this wheel now the exact same way we did the front ones. And for the back bearings, folks, we're using a 15 millimeter tool this time. The fronts were a 12. These are a 15. We're going to do the exact same thing we did on the front. I'm going to remove this side, then I'll flip it over and remove that side. Same process. All right, folks, we put the 15 millimeter on the other side again, just like I did before. Slide this in till you get it lined up. Hammer on that a little bit. Hopefully that stays in there. If we did it the right way the first time, we should be able to get that bearing right out. All right, we're working it out. The other side slowly. And there goes your bearing on that side. And of course, you also still have your sleeve inside there, folks. Go ahead, everything looks pretty good in there. Stick it in there. As long as that went in there okay, it should come right out. Said anti-seize or a little grease or something if you ever have to do it again. Like I said, hopefully you don't. But make sure you get everything cleaned up. Feel free to open the other bearings up, make sure they're okay. You can actually re-grease the new ones too, and hopefully you'll be happy for thousands of miles because you don't have to do it again. All right, folks, I got the sprocket side done. Remember, the sprocket side has the extra gasket on the inside. That's all cleaned up, put back in. Cleaned it all up, greased it good, got the bearing pounded back in, was able to reuse the seal after cleaning that up pretty good. And now, of course, we go to the brake side. This is the larger side, folks. This is where you're going to want to clean up your inner sleeve here, because that goes back in first before you put your bearings in. We'll clean that up good. That should set right down in there, hopefully. Not give us a hard time. We'll get it lined up pretty good. I had no issues doing the other side earlier. So like I said, you're going to want to clean up your gaskets or your seals if you're reusing them. Like I said, don't put the new bearings in. Don't be afraid to re-grease the new bearings too if you want a little extra peace of mind. And just like the front, folks, once you get your bearings repacked in there again, you're going to want to make sure, take a little brake parts cleaner, clean up your rotors and everything, so that way you're not going to have grease on your pads. Hey folks, this is the part that takes a little bit more patience now. Something I kind of lack sometimes. But you're going to want to make sure you get everything lined up again, which there's a lot here to line up. You got to have your spacer back in here. I cleaned and greased that up. You're going to want to get that. You're also going to have to line your caliper up again. Make sure your rotor goes in between your pads. That's a lot going on here all at once. But there's also, like again, they said there's the spacer on both sides, which I just dropped mine. But we'll focus on this side first. Get the caliper and everything lined up in there. And the caliper just sits on a slot on the swing arm. So, all right, folks, after you wrestled with this for a while, some of you might be a little bit better at this than me. I went through, I'm going to go ahead and get the chain and everything adjusted, make sure the wheel's nice and straight, make sure my rotors are clean, pads are clean, put a little lube on the chain since I have it up on the jack right now, a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and get everything lined up, and then that should be it for this. All right, folks, thanks for tuning into my video. Hopefully that helps you out with another maintenance project on your Chonda. I'm going to say I did make a mistake earlier on. The front ones are 6201, not 6301. The back ones are 6302, though. That is the correct bearing. Make sure you get the right ones. I'll go back and fix that in the video somehow. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.